From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm Vasilios. That is Sean Fazende. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you find your podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the little bell notification button. You get an update every time we upload a new podcast. Sean, we're recording this mere hours after the Saints finished their 20-17 victory against the Carolina Panthers in Charlotte. Let's just get right into it. What are your biggest takeaways from this game?
Well, first things first, just walked off the set. That explains this kind of half-dressed-up attire. It's not normally how I look on this very relaxed podcast, but it is what it is. We got to do what we got to do. We had our show, Black and Gold Review tonight, went very successful, and it's always a little more successful when you're talking about a Saints win. As for that win, I let off the show with it tonight. I will say it again. Ugly victory over moral victory any day of the week, especially at this level, especially in the NFL, especially on the road, especially in the division, especially in week 2 where you haven't had a whole lot of success. This was not a masterpiece. Duh, we can all see that. This was not a masterpiece. It was not easy, but in the end,
Saints got it done.
They got the job done. 2-0. Is still 2-0, completely imperfect, yet completely unapologetic for being 2-0, because once again, despite their flaws, despite their imperfections, with which there were many, I still felt like, as we sit here right now, the team that played the best, the team that coached the best, won the game. It's difficult in the NFL. You're not going to blow teams out in the NFL, regardless of who the opposing quarterback is. That's the outlier. It's usually games like this, but I still feel like the team that played the best and coached the best won. They didn't steal a win here in Carolina. They earned the win, as ugly as it was at times.
I think it was
overall
as close
it was
as the score said either.
Yeah, and then the last touchdown at the end, maybe got everything a little scary, but by that point the game was pretty much over. I thought that was the only real slip up by the defense. But overall, I feel like the Saints earned the win, as 100%. Ugly as it was. But it was a lot of their own doing, like just execution they got to be better at, as opposed to just, getting dominated by an opponent or having issues with an opponent. But we'll get into that in just a few minutes here. But I think overall, like I said, no one's going to throw a parade over this win, but I still think they deserve to win this game, and they won this game, and that's why they're 2-0.
And I mean, you said it wasn't the prettiest game out there, but they got the job done. But the offense, let's start there. What happened with the offense? They looked a little bit inconsistent at times. They had moments of brilliance, too. We saw a couple of those, the deep pass to Olave, the deep pass to Rashid Shaheed. What does the offense need to do to build on their consistency?
Okay, first and foremost, the red zone woes crept up again for the second week in a row. Okay, that's an issue now. That's an obvious issue now. You can't hide this issue now. You were able to overcome it for the second week in a row, but I'm here to tell you eventually that is going to cost you. Not being able to finish drives in the red zone is going to cost you. Early in the first half, you had a couple of opportunities. You could not seal the deal. Didn't get sevens, got those threes. Now, you did better in the second half, got sevens over the threes, but nonetheless, red zone inefficiency is an issue. And that's going to be something they have to hone in on. They have to. And everyone knows this. Everyone understands this. Secondly, and this is probably something that hasn't been talked about enough, just in the grand scheme of everything, but the Jamal Williams injury completely rattled Pete Carmichael and Derek Carr. It completely rattled Pete Carmichael and Derek Carr. They forgot to run the ball whenever he exited. When he exited the game, it was almost like they couldn't get everything straight to get another back in there or to turn to Taysom. When he got hurt and somewhere in that second quarter, it was on the 11-minute mark, they ran the ball once the rest of the half. They got completely out of sorts when Jamal Williams went down, who was running the ball pretty effectively. They were running the ball effectively up to that point, and when he went down, it was like they couldn't collect themselves. And what you saw, that just threw everything out of whack, because although they were having offensive line issues when they were still running the ball early in the game in the first quarter, when they didn't have the threat of the run, when they completely abandoned it in that stretch in the second quarter, that's when the issues really crept up. And the Panthers, I think, picked up on the fact that they weren't running. So they were doing a lot of exotic stuff up front. They were running a lot of twists, a lot of stunts, a lot of gains. And the offensive line struggled. They just struggled. And what it did more than anything else, it got in Derek Carr's head for that stretch of the second quarter. Mm-hmm. It got in his head. He was actually making decisions too quickly. And I think he even alluded to that after the game. It was like the pass rush kind of sped the clock up in his head to where he was just playing too fast. He was just a little out of sorts because of the pass rush issue. But it all went back to the fact that Jamal Williams exited the game, and it took him a while to realize we can still run the ball. And that's what happened in the second half. There was a stalemate. There was some issues. Derek Carr was not playing well. That interception was completely inexcusable. I mean, it really was. It was a bad throw. It was a late throw. And it really was it was an inexcusable play like the one he threw a week ago. And they were just out of sorts. But, what happens second week in a row now when the offense needs some life, needs some juice? Derek Carr calls on his guys on the outside. Chris Olave with the catch of the century, at least might be the greatest catch in Saints history. That might be. That was an unbelievable catch. I mean, the way his arm was pinned behind his back.
Yeah.
And they needed it so badly. They needed it so badly. That resettled them. And then all of a sudden when they did that,
got the swag
they
back.
started running the ball better. Mm-hmm. They started to it's like the picture became clearer for Derek Carr. And then in the end, the final drive, when they cut the lead to 13-9, he went to his other guy on the opposite side for a 45-yard gain, and Rashid Shaheed. So to have that in your back pocket, to have that available when things aren't going well and you just need to just break through, certainly feels like that's where Derek Carr is going. So all in all, it was a very uneven offensive performance. It was more of like sporadic big plays and big moments as opposed to a true systemic performance that overwhelmed Carolina.
Seems like that 2 weeks in a row.
That was 2 weeks in a row, but it was enough.
It was.
Tonight, it was enough tonight. And Michael Thomas, I thought, had a really great first half. That catch he made on the sideline that really should have set up a touchdown. It didn't. Was fantastic. But offensively, overall, this is still a work in progress. They're not there yet. You're seeing sort of flashes of what it could be, but it's just not there yet. And you just got to rep it out. And hopefully, at some point, they will get to where they think they can be. And if you can add some overall consistency to these big plays, I think it can be great, but you got to get there first. You got to get there first with the consistency. And it hasn't been there yet, but yet it has been enough to win games because of what's happening on the other side of the ball, which I'm sure you want to get to now.
Oh, yeah, we're definitely getting to that. So we alluded to this if you guys watched Black and Gold Review. There was a question that was sent in saying, do you think that this defense or this team is built for the defense to carry them? And I think we kind of saw that tonight. The defense is built to carry this team as it is right now. If the offense can just build consistency, the defense is definitely dominant.
What else can you say? I mean, what else can you really say? For the second week in a row, it's reason number one why they have a victory. And that stat that we read, I don't know if you guys heard it on the Black and Gold Review, 10th straight game, 20 or less points. That's unheard of in today's NFL. It's hard to do. The rules are not set up for you to do that.
You know what that means? It means you're doing something right.
Doing a lot of things right. To hold
Yeah.
to hold these teams to under 20, it's not set up for that in the NFL. It's just not set up for that in the NFL. The utter dominance.
You don't see that in the NFL anymore.
Utter dominance. They won the game for this team. ... Again. I mean, that's what it was. Utter dominance. I thought the Carl Granderson sack fumble was another one of those turning points in the game where it could have got ugly, but it kind of it shifted momentum right back. I'm not even sure the Saints scored on that drive, but it crushed a Panthers scoring opportunity. And as we saw, all these points matter in games like this.
Absolutely.
And then, look, Cam Jordan was a beast. Brian Brzee was on the field a lot. Both linebackers played tremendous again. I thought Tyrann Mathieu had a good game. Lattimore had the big pass breakup. I thought Alontae Taylor played well. Adebo, look, he got popped twice for for holding and pass interference. It's going to happen in this physical, handsy type coverage they like to run, but you got to live with it sometimes. Hopefully it doesn't pop up in crucial moments like it did, like it could have tonight, but it didn't crush them. And once again, I thought DA was on his game. DA was on his game calling defenses. You heard Louis Riddick talk about it all night. The mixing in of blitzes and dropping 8 and zone and 2-man and man coverage kept the rookie confused. And look, Bryce Young's going to have better days. Mm-hmm. You see the foundation pieces where he can be a good quarterback. It's just not there yet. It's just the decision-making process. While he may make the correct decision, it's too slow right now. And it's caught up to him. They'll have to work through that. But the Saints, in the meantime, they're teeing off on opposing quarterbacks, and they're making their life miserable.
Yeah, and how do you think they handled Bryce Young? Because earlier, Deuce McAllister, when he was talking to Juan Kincaid over in Charlotte, he said that unlike veteran quarterbacks, you kind of pick and choose what you throw at those veterans. But when it comes to a rookie, you kind of throw everything but the kitchen sink at them. So,
and they did. And DA tried to downplay that throughout the week, but I mean they really did, just in terms of different looks. In particular, on third down, they dominated third down. Panthers were 4 of 14. Last week, they were 2 of 12. The Tennessee Titans. Mm-hmm. And DA's defense is designed. He wants to keep you guessing on third down. So you got to get the third down first. That's why stopping the run is so important. But once he gets the third down, that's when DA likes to get exotic with his looks. And like I said before, sometimes they were dropping 8, which confused Bryce Young. Sometimes they were sending the guy off the edge. Sometimes they were sending linebackers up the middle. And sometimes Bryce Young was just inaccurate. And I said it before the game, and I said it on this podcast. And if you heard Lou Riddick, he said the same thing today. Bryce Young he's so much more comfortable working the middle of the field than he is on the outside.
Yep.
And I thought that showed up again tonight. He was just not that accurate on the outside the numbers. But in the middle, he certainly is much more comfortable. But I just think the Saints took care of business against a rookie quarterback, as they should have.
All right, so other observations from this game other than we kind of just explained on offense and defense. How about the stuff in the middle?
Yeah, well, look, Blake Grupe once again had another great game. What is it, two field goals he had? Yeah, 2 field goals. I mean, it was easy field goals, but he still made them. Made his extra points. And I want to give a shout-out to, we talked about Olave, we talked about Rashid Shaheed, Derek Carr, Jamal Williams, Tony Jones had a nice day. But do people truly understand and appreciate Taysom Hill? Like, I think they do. But, like, there are times where, and you almost felt it tonight, where this offense, it's like, oh, that's not working. That's not working. That's not working. Let's turn to Taysom. He comes through almost like a savior at times. It's not every game. Like last week, he hardly played. But tonight was a game where
you needed to lean on him.
You leaned on Taysom, and he delivered. I mean, they were running, and it wasn't just QB power, although the final first down was QB power. It was that quarterback draw they were doing. It was, zone read where he kept it. It was zone read where he gave it. There was a pass to Juwan Johnson that set up the second touchdown. There are times where you're kind of hitting your head against a brick wall offensively, and to have the luxury of a guy like Taysom Hill that could change it up, throw a change up at the defense. He's hard to tackle. He can do a lot of things. I appreciate that guy because he's the most unique player in the NFL. And I just thought tonight, it was a Taysom Hill type game where, although it wasn't dominant in terms of like the 4 touchdown game like he had last year against Seattle, I still think he made big play after big play that kept the chains moving and really settled things offensively, especially in that fourth quarter.
And before we finish up here, I wanted to hit this question that we received from Oliver and Plaquemine. Why do you think Carr isn't comfortable in the pocket just yet? Is it the O-line or what? And I mean, that's
it. It's O-line. Quarterback synergy is not there yet.
Yeah.
And when the quarterback feels like the O-line is struggling, the clock speeds up in his head, and you saw it in the second quarter. It's like that was every time there was a stretch where every time he took the snap, you almost felt like he was more concerned with the actual rush than actual getting the ball out of his hands and finding his receivers and going through his progressions. They're just not there yet. And the question is, does this get better? Well, you hope so, but it has to happen. And how long do you give it? And are there better options? And this was not just Trevor Penning tonight, folks. Eric McCoy struggled. Cesar Ruiz struggled. Even Ramczyk got beat early in the game from Brian Burns, off Brian Burns. And it forced, because it forced Derek Carr to step up, and then there was an interior rush that beat James Hurst. So this is a unit issue right now.
Yeah.
I know Ramczyk was good last week. I thought he was mostly good tonight, but aside from that one pressure. But this is 4 out of 5 have struggled. They've had tough outings. And Derek Carr, when that happens, there are times where it's almost like he's expecting it. And when I said the clock speeds up, he's rushing when he doesn't have to, and that's on him. Because regardless of how your offensive line's playing, if you have time, you have time. You got to decipher it. So that chemistry has got to come together, because that can hold you back later in the season or in any games in the season, because that could become a real issue. They've been able to overcome it, but I don't know if you want to leave that to chance every single week.
How much of that can you kind of not pin on, but say it's the running game is a little bit to blame too, because maybe with Jamal Williams going down today, they had Adam Prentice.
I thought that was the case today, because like I said, it's almost like Pete and Carr just forgot they could still run the ball for a quarter, for a stretch, and once they regrouped at halftime and slowed things down and ran the football, you saw it's like the pacing got better. So, yes, that can absolutely help, because if a defense, at some point in that second quarter, the Panthers knew the Saints were passing, and they teed off on them. You can't just be a one-dimensional offense. And they were running
Prentice
the ball.
Was in the backfield.
Exactly. And when Prentice in the backfield, you're not running it. They were giving it away. It wasn't just that they weren't running it. They were giving it away with,
personnel.
Prentice in the backfield. Yeah. He's not going to get a handoff. I know there was a couple times where Taysom was in the backfield. He caught a toss, like a toss sweep. He ran it, and he was a time they set up a screen for him. It didn't work in the backfield. But, it all goes hand in hand. But you're learning now, or people are seeing firsthand why the line of scrimmage is so important, because everything starts there. Everything starts there, and they're going to have to get that figured out, because that's while they got the win, that's something that can certainly hurt going forward.
Sean, any final thoughts on this Monday night as we wrap it up and head to bed here as we head into Tuesday and Packers week?
Yeah, 2-0 without Alvin Kamara, and I know that's big. I know the Saints looked at that 3-game stretch, and it was one of those things where if you win 2 out of 3, you're feeling good without one of your best, maybe arguably your best offensive player. They have survived, so even if they were to, I guess, fall next week to Green Bay, you still went 2 of 3 without Alvin Kamara, and Kamara can come back in week 4. And saying that, they want to get to 3-0, but I am a little concerned. This was a road game in Carolina, late game. Got to come back, short week, and then travel again. Been around these guys, these players long. That is not easy. That is not easy. Back-to-back road games not easy. Back-to-back road games where one team's on a short week and the other team is not. That's something to watch going forward. Jordan Love, we'll get into the tape next week. And
I said he was a top 15 quarterback.
We'll get into it. He was pretty efficient. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. But if you think you got an easy opponent next week, think again. But I do like where the Saints currently are just in terms of sheer 2-0. But Falcons are 2-0. The Bucs are 2-0 as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Three teams atop the NFC South at 2-0.
Who would have thunk it?
Not as bad as last year, folks. I said it. I was like, there is no way that's going to happen. It's not going to be as bad as it was last year. So, but that was fun. So good night of football. Saints get the W. Let's move on to this week.
All right, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This has been the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. That's Sean Fazende. I'm Vasilios. Remember to like, subscribe, rate, and review. You can find us wherever you listen to and watch your podcast. We'll catch you guys next time.